Giant rancher met a heartbroken schoolteacher and fought the bond, but blood united them. He planted Talos. 9 was not a place for soft hearts. The land stretched wide under a pale orange sky, dry and endless. Dust storms came without warning, rolling across the plains like silent giants. Strange creatures moved across the land, massive, heavy, and stubborn. Only the strongest survived here. And among all species on Talos, 9, humans were known as the strongest. They were called giants. Elias Rourke was one of them. He stood tall even among humans, broad-shouldered and quiet, with hands that could guide a 10-ton beast with nothing but pressure and patience. He lived far from the main settlement, out on the open plains where the air was thin and the ground cracked under sun. Elias was a rancher, but not the kind people imagined. He didn't raise cattle. He managed graft beasts, huge, slow-moving creatures with thick skin and glowing veins. They were valuable, rare, and dangerous if handled poorly. Many had tried to control them. Most had failed. Elias never failed. He worked alone, always alone. That was his choice. Far away, in the small settlement called Haven Post, a transport ship landed quietly. From it stepped a woman who did not belong on Talos 9. Her name was Lyra Van. She was small compared to humans. Her skin had a faint silver tone, and her eyes were soft and deep, like calm water. Her species, the Veil, were known for their strong emotional bonds. They formed deep connections that lasted a lifetime. And when those bonds broke, they did not heal easily. Lyra carried only one small bag. She looked around the dusty settlement, her expression calm, but inside her heart felt heavy. She had come here to start again, or at least to try. Haven Post was struggling. The children needed a teacher. Many families lived here from different species, and they needed someone patient, someone kind, someone who could understand more than just words. That was why Lyra had been sent. But even on her first day, people could see something was wrong. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She spoke gently, but her voice carried a quiet sadness. Still, she did her job. She taught the children. She listened to them. She helped them feel safe. And slowly, the settlement began to accept her. Elias had heard about the new teacher. He didn't care. The settlement and its people were not as concerned. He only came into Haven Post when necessary, to trade supplies or report data about the graft beasts. He liked it that way. No questions, no connections, no bonds. 3 days after Lyra arrived, the sky darkened early. A storm was coming. The wind picked up, carrying fine dust that stung the skin. People rushed indoors. Doors were sealed. Windows were covered. Lyra was still outside. She had stayed late at the small school building, organizing materials for the next day. She didn't notice how fast the storm had formed. By the time she stepped outside, the wind was already strong. The world turned orange and blurry. She tried to walk back to her assigned housing, but the wind pushed against her. Her small body struggled against the force. Her breathing became uneven. Her species was not made for this kind of environment. Her chest tightened. Her vision blurred, and then she collapsed. Elias was on the edge of the settlement when the storm hit. He had just finished securing his equipment. Normally, he would return home immediately and wait it out, but something felt off. Through the dust, his sharp eyes caught movement, or rather, someone not moving. He stepped forward, slow but steady against the wind. Then he saw her, a small figure on the ground, half covered in dust. The teacher. Elias frowned. He didn't move at first. This wasn't his problem. The settlement had medics. Someone else would find her. But the storm was getting worse, and no one else was out here. He took a slow breath. Then, with clear reluctance, he walked toward her. Lyra was barely conscious when she felt strong hands lift her. Everything felt distant. Her body was cold. Her chest burned as she tried to breathe. She couldn't see clearly, but she knew one thing. She was not alone. Elias carried her to his transport vehicle and sealed the doors. Inside, the air was stable. He placed her carefully on the seat, watching her condition. He didn't need medical scans to understand. He had seen this before, not her species, but similar reactions. Stress, environmental shock, internal collapse, and something else. Her pulse was weak, too weak. Elias clenched his jaw. There was only one fast way to stabilize her, one way he never liked using. Humans on Talos. 9 had changed over generations. The planet had forced it. Their bodies had adapted. Their blood was not normal anymore. It carried microscopic machines, nanocytes, that help repair damage, fight toxins, and adapt to extreme conditions. Sometimes, in rare cases, it could stabilize other species. But it was risky, unpredictable, and personal. Very personal. Elias looked at her again. She was fading. If he waited, she would not survive. He exhaled slowly. "Just this once," he muttered. The process was simple, but not easy. Elias prepared a small injector. He didn't use much, just a controlled amount. He took a sample from himself. Then, carefully, he injected it into Lyra's system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her body reacted. Her breathing stopped. Elias froze. Then, her chest rose sharply. Air rushed into her lungs. Her pulse jumped. Her skin, pale before, gained a faint glow. Elias stepped back slightly, watching closely. The nanocytes were working, adapting, stabilizing, but something felt different, something he hadn't seen before. Lyra's eyes opened slowly. The first thing she felt was warmth, not outside but inside her, like a steady flame. Her body no longer felt weak. Her breathing was easier, her mind clearer. She turned her head slightly and saw him, a large figure sitting nearby, watching silently. Elias. Their eyes met for the first time. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Lyra felt something strange. Not fear, not confusion. Something deeper, like recognition, as if a part of her already knew him. Elias noticed it too, and he didn't like it. "You're stable," he said, his voice low and calm. Lyra tried to sit up. "You help me," she said softly. Elias didn't answer immediately. "Yes," he said after a pause. She studied him quietly. "Thank you." Elias looked away. "It was necessary," he replied. "Not kindness, not concern, just necessity." That's how he preferred it. The storm outside continued, but inside the vehicle, the air felt still, too still. Lyra placed a hand lightly on her chest. "That feeling," she whispered. Elias stiffened slightly. "What feeling?" She hesitated. "It's like something is steady inside me now. Like I'm not alone anymore." Silence filled the space. Elias stood up. "That will pass," he said firmly. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure, because he had felt it too. The moment the transfusion completed, a faint pull, a connection, small but real. When the storm ended, Elias took her back to Haven Post. People rushed to her side, relieved to see her alive. The local medic checked her quickly and was confused. "She's stable," he said. "Better than stable." Lyra looked toward Elias, but he was already walking away. He didn't stay. He never stayed. That night, Lyra sat alone in her room. She should have been resting, but she couldn't sleep. Her body felt different, stronger, calmer, and that strange feeling, it hadn't gone away. If anything, it had grown clearer. She placed her hand on her chest again, and for a brief moment, she felt something else. A presence, not inside her mind, but connected to her. Far away, steady, unmoving, like a mountain. Miles away on the open plains, Elias stood outside his home. The storm had passed. The sky was clear again, but he wasn't at peace. He could feel it, faint but undeniable, a connection. He closed his eyes briefly. "This was a mistake," he said quietly. Humans did not form bonds lightly, and when they did not break. Back in Haven Post, Lyra looked out at the stars. She didn't understand what had happened, but for the first time in a long time, her heart didn't feel broken. It felt held, and somewhere between them, across distance and silence, something had begun. Something neither of them had wanted, something neither of them yet understood, but something that would not fade. The days after the storm felt different. Haven Post returned to normal. Children went back to class. Workers repaired damaged equipment. The wind calmed, and the sky turned its usual pale orange again. But for Lyra Venn, nothing felt the same. She stood in front of her students, holding a small learning tablet. Her voice was steady as she explained a simple lesson about planetary systems. The children listened, some curious, some distracted. Everything looked normal, but inside, something had changed. Her body felt lighter, stronger. Her mind was clear in a way she had never felt before. Even her emotions, once heavy and painful, seemed balanced, not gone, but calmer, as if something was holding them steady. After class, one of the children approached her. Teacher Lyra. The small boy said, "You look happy today." Lyra paused. Happy? She hadn't thought about it like that. She gave a soft smile. "Do I?" The boy nodded. "Yes, before your eyes look sad." Lyra blinked slightly, surprised. "Thank you," she said gently. The boy ran off to join the others. Lyra remained still for a moment. Her eyes turned toward the open window, looking out at the distant plains. She could not see Elias, but she felt something, a quiet presence, steady, always there. Elias Rourke did not return to Haven Post. Not the next day. Not the day after that. He stayed on his ranch, working longer hours than usual. He moved among the graft beasts, checking their health, adjusting their paths, repairing fences. He focused on work. Only work. Because when he stopped, he felt it, that connection. Faint but constant, like a thread pulling at his awareness. He did not like it. Elias stood beside one of the largest graft beasts, resting a hand against its thick skin. The creature let out a low sound, calm and slow. Normally, Elias understood these creatures easily. Their behavior made sense. Their patterns were clear. But now, something distracted him, a feeling he could not control. He closed his eyes for a moment, and there it was again, her presence, soft, but impossible to ignore. He pulled his hand away quickly. "This ends," he muttered, but he did not know how. Back in Haven Post, Lyra sat in the small medical room. The local medic, a tall, thin alien named Saran, studied her readings carefully. "This is unusual," Saran said. Lyra sat calmly. "Am I in danger?" Saran shook his head slowly. "No, that is what makes this strange. You are healthier than before. Much healthier." He adjusted the scanner again. "Your internal systems have stabilized. Your stress markers are low. Even your cellular decay has slowed." Lyra listened quietly. "Is that bad?" she asked. Saran paused. "No," he admitted. "It is remarkable." Lyra looked down at her hands. "And the cause?" Saran hesitated. Then he spoke carefully. "The human's blood." The word stayed in the room. Heavy, important. Lyra lifted her gaze slowly. "You mean Elias?" Saran nodded. "What he gave you, it did more than heal you. It changed you." Lyra felt that steady warmth again in her chest. She had already known something was different, but hearing it made it real. "Can it be reversed?" she asked softly. Saran did not answer immediately. "I do not know," he said honestly. "This kind of interaction, it has never been recorded before." Lyra nodded slowly. She should have felt fear, but she didn't. Instead, she felt something else. Curiosity and a quiet pull. That evening, Lyra made a decision. She left Haven Post. The plains were wide and empty. The air was still, but the ground felt endless under her feet. She had never walked this far outside the settlement before. Her species preferred safe environments, controlled spaces. But now, she didn't feel weak. She didn't feel afraid. She followed the feeling. That quiet, steady presence. Miles away, Elias suddenly stopped. He was repairing a broken section of fence when it hit him. The connection grew stronger, sharper. He looked up immediately. "She's moving," he said under his breath. He didn't need a scanner. He didn't need proof. He knew, and he didn't like it. Lyra continued walking. The sun lowered slowly in the sky, casting long shadows across the land. Her breathing remained steady, her steps sure. But after some time, something changed. The connection inside her began to shift. It tightened. Her chest felt heavy again. Not like before, but close. She stopped. Her hand moved her chest. Her breathing slowed. Then it became uneven. Elias felt it instantly. The steady connection, unstable. He didn't think. He moved. Lyra tried to continue walking, but her strength faded. The balance she had felt before began to slip. The warmth inside her flickered. Her vision blurred slightly. "No," she whispered. She understood now. The connection wasn't just a feeling. It was supporting her, holding her steady. And without it, she was falling again. Elias arrived faster than she expected. One moment, she was alone. The next, a large shadow stood before her. He looked down at her, his expression serious. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice was calm, but firm. Lyra tried to respond, but her breath was weak. Elias stepped closer. The moment he did, the connection stabilized. Lyra felt it immediately. Her breathing eased. Her body relaxed. She looked up at him. Now she understood. "It's real," she said quietly. Elias didn't answer. "You feel it too," she added. Silence. Then slowly, "Yes." They stood there, facing each other under the fading light. Lyra spoke first. "This bond is not fading." "No," Elias said. "Then what does that mean?" Elias looked away, toward the horizon. "It means this is a problem." Lyra frowned slightly. "A problem?" "Yes." He stepped back slightly, creating distance. "You rely on it now," he said. Your body adjusted to it. If you move too far away, your condition returns. Lyra absorbed his words. "So I cannot leave?" "Not safely," Elias replied. Silence followed. The wind moved gently across the plains. Lyra looked at him carefully. "You don't want this," she said. It wasn't a question. Elias didn't hesitate. "No." The answer was simple. Clear. Honest. Lyra lowered her gaze for a moment. "That's understandable," she said softly. Elias glanced at her. "You agree?" "Yes," she said. "I did not choose this either." That surprised him. He had expected resistance, emotion, but her voice was calm. "I already lost one bond," Lyra continued. "I am not eager to accept another one I did not choose." Elias studied her expression. There was pain there, but also strength, quiet strength. "Then we end it," Elias said. Lyra looked up quickly. "How?" Elias paused. "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but we will find a way." They stood in silence again. But this time, the silence felt different. Not empty, connected. The sky darkened as night approached. Elias turned slightly. "We should return," he said. Lyra nodded. This time, she didn't argue. As they walked back together, the distance between them remained small, not by choice, but by necessity. For the first time, Elias did not walk away immediately when they reached Haven Post. He stayed long enough to make sure she was stable, long enough to feel the connection settle again. Inside her room, Lyra sat quietly. Her body was calm once more. The heaviness was gone. The warmth returned. Miles away, Elias stood outside again, looking at the stars. He could still feel it. Clear, steady, unbroken. "This is not temporary," he said to himself. And for the first time, he understood the truth. Somewhere in the system, a research vessel received new data. A xenobiologist reviewed the report carefully. Human nanosite interaction, cross-species stabilization, unexpected resonance. The scientists leaned forward. This should not be possible. But the data was clear. Back on Talos 9, 2 lives had already changed. A bond had formed, not by choice, not by design, but real. And now, the question was no longer if it existed. The question was what it would become. The bond did not disappear. Days passed on Talos 9, and instead of fading, the connection between Elias Rourke and Lyra Venn became clearer, stronger, more natural. Elias did not return to his old routine. Not fully. He still worked the ranch, still guided the Graph beasts across the wide plains. But now, every few hours he would stop, not because he was tired, but because he felt something. A shift, a signal. Lyra, if she was calm, he felt steady. If she was tired, he noticed it. And if something disturbed her even slightly, he knew. He didn't like how easily he could sense her, but he could no longer ignore it. Lyra also noticed a change. She no longer feared the connection. At first, it had confused her. Then it had frustrated her. Now, it helped her. Inside the small classroom at Haven Post, Lyra moved between the children with quiet confidence. "Again," she said gently. "Try to solve it slowly." A young student struggled with a lesson, making small errors again and again. Before, Lyra would have felt stressed, overwhelmed, but now she remained calm, patient, as if something inside her supported her balance. One of the older students tilted her head. "Teacher, how you stay so calm?" Lyra paused. She smiled slightly. "I am not alone anymore," she said. The student didn't fully understand, but Lyra did. That same day, Elias stood near a group of graft beasts. Normally, they were difficult to guide when restless. But something strange had begun to happen. They listened faster, moved smoother, stayed calmer. Elias watched one of the largest beasts lower its head peacefully as he approached. "That's new," he muttered. He placed a hand on its side. The creature gave a soft, low sound. No resistance, no tension. Elias frowned slightly. Then he realized something. It wasn't just him. It was the bond. Miles away, Lyra stood near the edge of Haven Post, watching the plains. She felt it too, a strange sense of calm spreading outward, not just inside her, but around her. The next time Elias came to the settlement, he did not leave immediately. That alone surprised everyone. Lyra saw him from across the open space. He stood near his transport, speaking briefly with a supply worker. Then his eyes shifted and found her. For a moment, neither moved. The connection between them felt clear, not heavy, not forced, just present. Lyra walked toward him slowly. Elias remained still. When she stopped in front of him, she spoke first. "It's changing," she said. Elias nodded slightly. "Yes." They stood side by side, not too close, but not distant either. "The bond," Lyra continued. "It feels different now." Elias crossed his arms. "It's stabilizing," he said. "Not just stabilizing," Lyra replied. "Growing." That word stayed in the air. Elias looked at her carefully. "You're stronger," he said. Lyra nodded. "So are you." That surprised him. "I was always strong," Elias said. Lyra shook her head slightly. "Not like this." Elias didn't respond, but he understood. Something had changed, not just in her, in him too. Later that day, they walked together along the outer edge of the settlement. The ground stretched wide in front of them, quiet, endless. Why do humans stay on planets like this? Lyra asked. Elias didn't look at her. "Because we can... That's all." "Yes." Lyra thought about that. Then she smiled slightly. "No," she said. "There is more." Elias glanced at her. "Explain." Lyra looked out at the plains. "Humans don't just survive difficult places," she said. "You change them." Elias said nothing. "You bring life into harsh environments," she continued. "You build. You adapt. You make things work, even when they shouldn't." Elias looked forward again. "That's survival." Lyra shook her head. "No," she said softly. "That's something more." The wind moved gently around them. For a moment, Elias didn't argue. That evening, something unexpected happened. A group of graft beasts moved close to Haven Post. It was not dangerous, but unusual. They normally stayed far from the settlement. People watched carefully from a distance. The creatures were calm, but their size alone made others nervous. Elias stepped forward immediately. "This shouldn't happen," he said. He moved toward the beasts, ready to guide them away. But before he reached them, Lyra stepped forward. Elias stopped. "What are you doing?" he asked. Lyra didn't answer. She walked slowly toward the largest graft beast. The people behind her held their breath. No one spoke. Lyra stopped a short distance away. The creature turned its head toward her. Its glowing veins pulsed softly. Elias watched closely, ready to step in, but he didn't move. Lyra took one more step. Then she stood still. The bond inside her felt warm. steady, connected. She didn't reach out. She didn't speak loudly. She simply stood there, calm, open. The Graf beast lowered its head slowly, not in fear, not in submission, but in acceptance. A soft sound came from it, low, peaceful. Elias stared. He had worked with these creatures for years, and he had never seen this. The rest of the herd shifted slightly. Then, slowly, they began to move away, on their own, calmly, without direction. Lyra stepped back. Her breathing remained steady. Elias walked up beside her. "That shouldn't be possible," he said. Lyra looked at him. "Maybe it is now," she replied. He studied her expression. Then the creatures. Then the quiet settlement. "This bond," Elias said slowly, "it's affecting more than just us." Lyra nodded. "Yes." That night, the stars seemed brighter than usual. Inside the settlement, people talked quietly about what they had seen. Something had changed, not just in Elias, not just in Lyra, but in the space around them. Far above Talos, 9, the research vessel received new data. The xenobiologist reviewed it carefully. Behavioral shifts, environmental influence, cross-species interaction. "This is not just a connection," the scientist said quietly. "This is evolution." Back on the planet, Lyra sat outside, looking at the sky. Elias stood a short distance away. Neither spoke, but neither felt alone. "You were wrong," Lyra said softly. Elias looked at her. "About what?" "This is not a problem." Elias was silent. Lyra placed a hand over her chest. "It's something new." Elias looked at the horizon, at the land he had lived on for years, at the world he thought he understood, and for the first time, he wasn't sure anymore. Miles away, the Graf beasts rested peacefully, closer to the settlement than ever before. Above them, unseen forces moved. Change had begun, and at the center of it, 2 lives, once separate, now connected, not by force, not by choice, but by something stronger, something that was growing, and something the universe itself had never seen before. The change could no longer be ignored, not by Elias, not by Lyra, and not by anyone watching them. Days passed after the moment with the Graf beasts. The settlement of Haven Post felt different, calmer, more stable. Even the air seemed lighter. People worked with less tension. Children laughed more freely. Small conflicts between different species became easier to resolve. No one could explain it clearly, but many had the same quiet thought. It started when they changed. Lyra continued her work as a teacher, but now her presence carried something more. When children felt scared, they calmed faster around her. When someone was upset, they found it easier to speak. It was not something she forced. It simply happened. Elias noticed it every time he came to the settlement. And now he came more often, not because he wanted to, but because the bond made distance difficult. Still, he kept his emotional distance. He spoke little, stayed serious, and avoided looking at Lyra for too long. But that did not mean he was unaffected. One evening, as the sun lowered across the plains, Elias stood near his ranch, watching the horizon. The Graf beasts rested nearby. Peaceful, still, he felt it again. That connection. Steady, warm, unbreakable. He clenched his hand slightly. "This is not right," he said quietly. For Elias, life had always been simple. Work, survive, stay alone. Bonds were dangerous, because bonds meant responsibility, and responsibility meant risk. Loss, pain. He had seen it before, he had lived it before, and he had decided long ago, never again. But now, that choice was no longer fully his. Miles away, Lyra sat inside the medical room again. Saran, the medic, adjusted the scanner carefully. He had been studying her condition for days, and now he had answers. "It is possible," Saran said slowly. Lyra looked up. "To separate the bond?" Saran hesitated. "Yes, but not without consequences." Lyra's expression remained calm. "What kind of consequences?" Saran turned the screen toward her. "Your body has adapted to the human nanocytes. They are now part of your system. If we remove their influence..." He paused. You will return to your previous condition. Lyra lowered her gaze slightly. Her previous condition. Weak, unstable, heartbroken. And Elias? She asked. Saran shook his head. The effect on him will be smaller. Humans are more adaptable, but there will still be loss. Lyra understood. The bond was not equal. It supported her more, but it still connected both of them. Is it safe? She asked. Saran nodded slowly. Yes, it can be done. Silence filled the room. Lyra looked down at her hands. Steady, strong, alive. She remembered how she felt before coming to Telos. 9, broken, lost, alone. Now, she was none of those things. Thank you, she said quietly. I need time to think. That night, she went to find Elias. He stood outside his home, as he often did, looking at the sky, watching the stars. He felt her before he saw her. The connection shifted. Closer, clearer. You shouldn't be out here alone, he said without turning. I'm not alone, Lyra replied softly. Elias turned then. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Lyra stepped closer. I spoke with a medic, she said. Elias's expression sharpened slightly. And there's a way to end the bond. The word stayed in the air. Heavy, important. Elias looked away first. Good, he said, but his voice was not as firm as before. Lyra watched him carefully. You want that? Yes. The answer came quickly. Too quickly. Why? Lyra asked. Elias frowned slightly. You already know why. I want to hear you say it, she said. Silence. Then, because this is not normal, Elias said. It was not chosen. It changes things it shouldn't change. Lyra listened quietly. And because Elias continued, slower now. This life is not safe. Not for you. Lyra stepped closer. I decide what is safe for me. Elias shook his head. You don't understand this world. Lyra looked around at the wide plains. I am learning, she said. That's not enough, Elias replied. Lyra took a breath. Then she spoke again. When I came here, she said softly, I had nothing left. My bond was broken. My future was empty. Elias said nothing. I did not choose this bond, she continued. That is true. She placed a hand lightly over her chest. But it did not trap me. Elias looked at her again. It healed me, Lyra said. The words were simple, but strong. Elias's expression shifted slightly. You think removing it will fix things, Lyra said, but it will only take me back to who I was. Elias turned away again. That's your choice. Yes, Lyra said. It is. Silence filled the space again. Then Lyra spoke one last time. I am not choosing the bond, she said. I am choosing what it helped me become. Elias closed his eyes briefly. For the first time, he did not have an answer. The wind moved gently around them. After a long moment, Elias spoke again. If you keep it, he said quietly, this connection stays. Lyra nodded. Yes. Elias looked at her. Really looked. You understand what that means? He asked. Yes, she said. Another pause. Then Elias exhaled slowly. For the first time, he stopped fighting it. Then we adapt, he said. Lyra smiled softly. Yes, she replied. Like humans do. A small, quiet moment passed between them. Not forced, not heavy, just accepted. Days later, the decision was made. The procedure was not done. The bond remained. And something new began. The research vessel above Telos, 9 recorded everything. The xenobiologist reviewed the final data. Human adaptive symbiosis, the scientist said. Not dominance, not control. Connection. Reports were sent across systems. Other species studied the findings. Humans were no longer seen only as strong or dangerous. They were something else. They were bridges. On Telos, 9, Haven Post grew stronger. More species arrived. More cooperation formed. The Grath beasts moved closer to the settlement, calm and steady. The land itself seemed to soften. And at the center of it all, Elias and Lyra continued their lives. not as something forced, not as something accidental, but as something chosen. Elias still worked the ranch. Lyra still taught the children. But now, they did not stand alone. One evening, they stood together at the edge of the plains. The sun lowered slowly, painting the sky in soft light. Lyra looked at the horizon. "It's peaceful," she said. Elias nodded. "Yes." After a moment, she spoke again. "You were wrong," she said gently. Elias raised an eyebrow slightly. "About what?" Lyra smiled. This was never a problem. Elias looked out across the land, the world he had known for so long. Then, slowly, he nodded. "No," he said, "it wasn't." The wind moved around them, soft, calm, and the bond between them remained, not as chains, not as weight, but as strength, as balance, as something shared, and in a world where survival was everything. That connection became something greater. It became hope.